is 4-minute interventions by the panelists. I think this time I'm just going to give time so I don't interrupt speakers at the peak of their remarks. And we have 4 questions here. I think part of the idea was we didn't want everybody to have to use the remarks to say the same thing that everyone else was saying. We were hoping that we could have the panelists, give an actual exchange and either elaborate on or give different perspectives on the same point. So I'll read the questions, but if you have a discussion about one of these, but it goes deep, I think that is actually ideal. So maybe starting with the second, third, or fourth might even be best, because I feel like your opening remarks dealt a lot with the first. So here we go. Here are the questions again. What are the conditions that fueled the recent upsurges in several countries in Latin America? Talk about some of the most advanced expressions of working class militancy and working class independence. C, what are the main obstacles in the path of the development of the struggle? And D, what does all this mean regarding the tasks of organizations and activists in Latin America and in the US? For this, anyone can begin.
Can you repeat questions 3 and 4, please?
Yes. Question 3, or C, what are the main obstacles in the path of the development of the struggle? And D, what does all this mean regarding the tasks of organizations and activists in Latin America and the US?
Okay.
I unmuted myself. Can I speak?
Yes, please go ahead. Yes.
I want to actually just respond to the first and the third. And the first was what conditions fueled the recent upsurge in several countries in Latin America. I spoke to that again, but I want to reiterate that I think 2 things have come together since 2000. And the first is the bankruptcy of these progressive governments and leftist governments. And that has come together with this extremely aggressive and violent offensive of transnational capital and of the far right, of course, led by the US state. They're really even a neo-fascist right. And I think those 2 things are coming together and to fuel, and they imposed a new round of neoliberal austerity and measures throughout the region. And that was this final trigger that has sparked this particular uprising. But I want to speak about the third more specifically. What are the main obstacles in the path of the development of the struggle? And I want to say here that we had a situation from 2000 to 2005 where there were mass uprisings. In Ecuador, they overthrew 2 governments within 3 years. In Bolivia, the same thing. Throughout the region. In Argentina, they overthrew 3 governments on the turn of the century. But in each of these cases, there was not a revolutionary political vehicle that could link with these mass uprisings and implement a revolutionary project. And we're now once again in a similar situation where you have this juncture between a mass rebellion from below of the working class and popular classes in civil society, in social movements, but you don't have viable political organizations. We have our revolutionary organizations, but we don't have a viable political project that can steer that into taking power in the state. I mean, we have this juncture, and I think that's a significant obstacle that we need to analyze and think about.
Hi, this is Blanca. I would like to speak on the question of obstacles also, if that's okay. Go for it.
Yes, yes.
So I completely agree with what William is saying. And I think that in the question of obstacles, I see 2 main obstacles. One is because, of course, we want to connect this movement, revolutionary movement, with a revolutionary institution that will help to push the movement forward and go beyond just mass days of action that maybe depose a government, but you have a new government. And I think the 2 things that we're seeing in Chile, one is a very, very strong political repression of the main organizers. And that we saw already in Argentina. And that we cannot underestimate that, because if we don't defeat this repression, the movement, people get very scared. I mean, our comrades are threatened to death. We have 2 comrades in Argentina. One was in jail, was just freed, Daniel Ruiz, because he was protesting. He's an oil worker against the summit of the G20. I mean, this is a big blow when one of your comrades is arrested. And in Chile today, we have 2,000 political prisoners. 2,000 political prisoners. These are like the rank and file key leaders that have been carefully selected and are arrested in brutal ways. You look at the videos that have circulating via Facebook that get erased, you see the military kicking the door open of your house and dragging the kids from their hair out of their houses. Like you would think you're in a scene of a dictatorship from the 70s, right? So there is a political repression. And the second, of course, is the attempt to co-opt the movement, right? In Chile, one of the big demands was to get rid of the Constitution of 1980, not just of the Piñera government, right? The Piñera government and the Constitution. And what has the opposition and the government done? They have proposed a way to channel this demand into a way of saying, okay, we're going to have a new constitution, but let's do a constitutional convention with a system of elections that will allow them to defeat the movement, not in the streets, because they cannot defeat the movement in the streets. They will defeat the movement in the ballot box. So this attempt to channel the working class struggle that is developing through these committees, through these assemblies, through these strikes, to channel it into electing your delegates for the Constituent Assembly and setting rules for the Constituent Assembly that forbid the really representatives, the main actors of this assembly, of this movement to be part of this process. I think this is one of the obstacles, and I think there is a very important discussion we need to have in the left of how do we relate to the Constituent Assembly demand, right? Do we see this is like a trap? Or do we intervene with it saying, yes, okay, we will do a Constituent Assembly, but delegates will not be elected with the traditional bourgeois rules of election. Delegates will be elected in our own popular assemblies, in our cabildos. And in order to have this assembly, we're going to put an assembly and also political programs. So there is a big discussion, because a big fear we have right now is that all of this is going to result in new elections, new assembly, new government, and business as usual. And this is also how many of these revolutionary processes have been defeated. They have been channeled into bourgeois democracy, into parliamentarism. So that, I think, it's something we need to study. I know I'm getting over time, but I think something we need to spend some time. How do we relate with this aspiration the movement has today in Chile? That it's not enough to put Piñera down. We need a new society. We need a new constitution. We need to change the system. How concretely we dialogue with this demand?
Thank you, Blanca. I see that Juan is now here. Juan, we are in the period of answering the main 4 questions.